it's our normal regalia or our textiles for now that I've imported. But it is an interesting, it will be an interesting point or a perspective to see that play out. So tying things back to, the value and everything again. I did some, intellectual property management course briefly, and I learned about the different mechanisms of valuing intellectual property. And yes, I got to really get the perspective of how the finances come into play and in the role of evaluating intellectual property and the taxes, etc. In the African context, do you think the real constraint is the strength of the IP framework themselves, or the gaps in enforcement awareness and the commercialization of that IP? Where
Hmm.
is the most value currently, being lost?
Very good question. Okay, so I think one thing I will say is we have no shortage of laws and legislation. I can speak for Nigeria. I can't really speak for Kenya or any other region, but I know for Nigeria we do have. I mean, we have the Copyright Act 2022, which was recently updated. The Trademark Act has not been recently updated, though. That's still from the 90s. So I think that is telling that something that old would definitely not be fit for purpose for 2026. So I think for me okay, so for something like the Trademark Act, yes, that is definitely in need of reform. We would need to reform it, just so we can capture updated forms of trademark. I mean, trademarks have come a long way. We're not just talking about logos, we're talking about even colors. I think Sarah mentioned that colors can be trademarked, and I'm sure they will. And there's even sound. There's sound marks, right? I'm sure we'll have smell marks at some point. Yeah, because we need
Yes.
to really think ahead. We need to think ahead. Where are we going? Humans are always crossing new lines of innovation, trying to cross boundaries. But I would say for the copyright, it's done quite a good job. Although I would say that where image rights are concerned, it still does not cover image rights, or otherwise known as personality rights. So let me explain, let me break that down. Right now, if I am, say, an athlete or or say a fit farm influencer. I've got like 200,000 people on IG. I put out my new nice athleisure line that I'm trying to sell. And one thing we do see on IG a lot is impersonation. People go creating multiple accounts, trying to create the impression that that's the person that is selling it and things like that. So I would say that we are not adequately covered in that respect. Do you know that somebody can actually, you know, take your image and go plaster it on, say some other products, and it
Mm.
would be a bit of a challenge to either take it down or to stop it, because there's no actual legislation that speaks directly to your personality and image. There's other ways you can get around it. So we have the NDPR, the National Data Protection Act. We have those. So you have other ways, and in fact, I think it's good that I mentioned that Olumide Babalola, who's a renowned data protection activist. I call him activist because he is passionate about what he's doing, activist and counsel, and he managed to get the courts for the first time to recognize some form of privacy issue. It had never happened before. So the truth of the matter is, we are all exposed. Sports people, influencers, IG hot chicks, they're all exposed until we can get our laws to recognize personality and image rights. And I don't think we necessarily need to overhaul the current act. We need to amend it. So, if any of our policymakers are listening, and they should be listening to such important conversations as this, then the challenge is for them to think about, a 2027, 2028 version. So we need to encourage that gap to be closed so that our entrepreneurs, our sportspreneurs can actually, safely run their businesses, especially businesses that rely heavily on their image, because it costs so much money. It is prohibitive to people to, you set up a business, the business revolves around your face, your image, and then you have other people impersonating you. And then let's be honest, Bernice might agree with me. Your average person doesn't want to go to court. Your average person doesn't want to do doesn't they don't understand the whole concept of dispute resolution. Oh, it's too expensive, it's too expensive. So a lot of people, they're sleeping on their rights because they feel, oh, I can't afford it. Oh, God will help me. Oh, it's I'm laughing, but it's actually not funny. More people should actually, seek legal counsel to help them enforce their rights. But unfortunately, it is not the case. It's when you think of a country of 200 million people, out of 200 million people, let's be honest, how many people are actively using legal services, business consultancy services? It's few. It's probably less than 10%. So what we really want is, I would say, a stronger regime that would protect from the outset, that would protect, these image rights and personality rights. I mean, for trademarks, yeah, definitely we need to see that act updated ASAP. We also need to see, just generally, easier ease of doing business, as I call it. I would love the agencies to kind of come down to the masses more, educate more. We all need to educate. We lawyers, we're doing our bit. Fashion Law Institute is doing its bit, and I'm glad Fashion Law Institute exists because it's so needed. Fashion is the way we express ourselves. Everyone can relate with fashion. Sports has fashion, has an element of fashion to it. So that way you're drawing in people that may not ordinarily be interested. So I do think that yes, legal frameworks could always be updated. It's a costly exercise, which is why it doesn't happen very often. But if they could just take into consideration some of these changes and updates, and let's be honest, things are changing every day. I haven't even talked about deep fakes. We do have an AI policy of sorts,
Very important. Mm,
and let's be honest, AI, what the impact right now of AI on, even the sports industry, the people that work in it, it's quite far-reaching. So we really need, innovation is moving at lightning speed, but we really
mm.
need our policies to try and keep up a bit more so that people are less harmed economically. Not, I don't mean,
Yes.
but yeah, less harmed economically, so they can exploit what belongs to them rightfully without fear of someone in some country I wouldn't name running deep fakes and drawing away business from their rightful channels. So just
I'm
some of my
going
ideas.
to Yes, definitely. I'm going to rush this a bit more.
Yeah, that's fine.
Probably the last question or so. Tying back to again, you mentioned AI, and that's what was really coming to mind when we're talking about personality rights and image rights. South Africa is currently in their process of drafting a policy for AI. It's in the
Yeah,
draft
I heard, I've
stage.
seen it. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, so we're still looking into them. These type of issues issues we're also challenged with. I mean, you would scroll through TikTok and you'll see somebody could take your content and feed it AI and it creates a
yes,
whole different content using your likeliness and everything. And I
yes,
could
yes,
imagine how much financial harm it could
yes,
cause. Let's say, for example, an athlete that probably
yes,
has a partnership with a certain brand, and their
exactly.
likeness is used in relation to a competitor, So for athletes and designers and sports organizations trying to build commercially viable brands, what are the most critical IP considerations they often overlook? I mean, I
Mm.
know AI right now is still
Yeah,
tricky, but there
yeah,
surely are other challenges they
of
do try
course.
to
Yeah.
overlook sometimes.
I think the first thing I would do if I was an athlete in any part of the country, in any part of Africa, is protect my name. That is my actual name. Okay. So if my name is Beverly Onyejanya, the first thing I'll do is I'm going to go trademark my name. Okay. Now, when we talk about trademarks, in Africa, we have two trademark systems. We have the OAPI, which is for the francophone side, and then we have the Aripi, which is for the anglophone side. So depending on how popular you are as an athlete, I mean, our athletes are pretty popular. Let's be honest, they're doing a
Mm.
good job. Our Nigerian athletes, our Kenyan athletes, South African, Egyptian, Ghanaian, most of them have begun to build, some form of following. We can call off a few names at the tip of our tongue. I think, what's the name of the guy that was the fastest man? Oh, he's from Botswana.
Usain Bolt,
No,
Botswana.
no, yeah, the fact he was really fast. The athlete, that's amazing guy. Now it's gonna bug
It's
me.
yeah, it's
You can't
not coming
remember.
to mind.
Okay, okay,
Yes.
okay. But so someone like him, he's from Botswana. He would definitely need to protect his name, because what's going to happen? People are going to try and ride off the back of his popularity unfairly, illegally. So I would always suggest, whether you're in sports, entertainment, tech, please protect your name. But where it gets tricky, I agree, is when you really need to think about going beyond the shores of your country. So you're a
Mm.
Nigerian athlete, you're getting out. Oh, thank you. Let's see later. Oh, thank you so much, Sarah. That's it. Let's see later, Bogo. Amazing. I love him. I love him. My husband shouldn't hear this. Let's see later, Bogo. So, imagine someone like him. His face starts springing up in different places. Sarah is laughing. So, he would need to protect, at least in different forms. Well, there's no central image rights law. Let's just assume, right, in most African countries. So your lawyer would have to, first of all, protect your name. After protecting your name, they'll probably have to go protect, say, a logo that bears your face or something. Just, you have to come up with creative ways of trying to protect your likeness in lieu of having a proper image, act that's more consolidated. That would be the first thing. Another thing, domain. I mean, always protect your domain. Domain, I don't know whether you're aware, domain disputes are on the rise. Oh my, I don't know
Mm.
why we don't talk about domain disputes in our side of the world. So you can imagine, you're trying to sell out sneakers, you're trying to sell jerseys, you need to make sure that you secure your domain. So one of the first things you do is you register your brand, your name as an athlete. Just register it and just keep it and leave it there. Park it there. Because there's something called cyber squatting. There are people
Mm.
that take advantage. The cyber squatters, they register popular names, whether it belongs to them or not. Why do they do that? So that when you finally decide, I think it'll be a good idea to register my name, you realize the name is already gone, and then they've set the
Mm.
price at £400, and you're there bargaining over what you think belongs to you. But guess what? It doesn't naturally belong to you. It might be your name, but it doesn't naturally belong to you. You have to claim it. And this is what I mean about people sleeping on their rights. So a good counsel, a good business advisor, or you go see Bernice, and she puts together for you a kind of a starter pack. Protect your name, protect your domain, and you just start from that perspective. So that's trademarks. Now I say this, and this is something my big brother Obi Asika said: where are the products? Where are the products? Where are the products? We don't do products, we don't sell products. And it's true. You contrast Africa with the West. Take the
Oh,
US, take Australia, take the UK. Everybody is monetizing themselves, whether it's headphones. Who's the headphones guy? Dr. Dre. Who's the headphones guy? Dr. Dre. The
mhm.
perfumes, sports perfumes. Let's talk about the one that all the young kids are going crazy about till today. I don't understand it. That drink, there's a popular drink. What's it called? What's it called? Prime. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I don't know if you've heard about Prime. My kids were
Yes,
telling me about Prime.
it was
Prime is
booming in the market.
booming. Prime is a sports drink. And what do? Some creator somewhere comes up with the idea and collaborates with an actual sports person or personality. And that's where we talk about, identifying the right people to do business with. And before you know it, you have a product on your hands, and that product is shifting in the millions. So we need to encourage our clients, our friends, sisters, brothers, boyfriends, husbands, lovers. They need to productize. We are under productizing in Africa. That's the simple truth. Let me give you a good example. Obiasika on a podcast was talking about how we are leaving money on the table with sports unions in the universities. You look at the elite Ivy League universities in America, Harvard. Do you know how many Harvard sweatshirts they sell every year? Excuse
Yes.
me? What? And you know the craziest thing? When I went into H&M last year with my daughter, what did I see? H&M partnering with Harvard. I said, wow, wow. So we are not productizing, but again, it might be simplistic to say, why are we not productizing? Because we have our issues that we're still battling with as people:
Mm.
power, the cost of the dollar. Everything in Nigeria is the dollar, the dollar, the dollar. Yeah, so it's a hard one, but I think we should still think about how to get over that hurdle, because we're losing money, we're leaving money on the table. Your average Nigerian university, maybe your average Kenyan university, how many students are attending? Let's call it 20,000. Can you imagine producing your proud alumni sweatshirt and just selling it, even if it's cost price, to 10,000 people every month? So, we need to really think bigger. We need to think about the various facets of life. The university sports is huge. Are we not doing the Youth Olympic Games in Senegal this year? So, I mean, what are we saying? So, I think we need to relook, we need to take a closer look at how we are thinking about sports and fashion. I mean, I think sometimes we look through a European lens, and I was saying this just last week on another panel. We look through a European lens too much. There are things that we can, even keepsake. Do you guys remember when this was again 20 years ago? Do you remember when there was that Live Strong by Lance Armstrong? Does anyone remember the Live Strong the bands? Kai, I'm revealing my age here. This is like
Yeah,
this is like
I
20
don't.
years. Sarah would remember. Those bands caught fire. Like it was like wildfire. Before you knew what was happening, it was being copied by churches, it was being copied by corporates. We need to think of little ways. We're ancient, my sister. It's just that we don't look it. We thank God. So, um, we need to think of those little things that we do. Thank God, though. We need to think of those little things that are unique to us as Africans that can
Mm.
catch on. We don't always have to, do the sexy two piece. So we can think of things that are more African that we can reproduce and manufacture. Do you understand what I'm saying? That
Yes.
way the IP travels. And guess what? Then the foreigners, the Westerners will now see it, like it. Boom, they now
And
replicate it, and then the global acceptance comes. So I think we need to productize more. Where are the products? Where are the products? Where are the products? Like my brother said, Obiasika. We need to encourage our local manufacturing, even if it's cottage. Let's just start there. Money follows value. Even if you're doing it cottage level, producing 100, producing 200, it just takes one investor to see what you're doing and say, you know what? This person has the spark I'm looking for. This person has the structure. This person can go the distance. We often forget that some of the best brands in the world started as cottage brands. Is it Nike
yeah.
that started in this? Is it 60s? Is it Spanx? The lady that did Spanx started in her, is it her bedroom or something? We need to celebrate small beginnings. People should not be ashamed of small beginnings. Bring your product. Let's work on it. Is it sweatbands? Cool sweatbands, maybe with the kente cloth or something. And also we need to also encourage more design, industrial design.
Yeah.
Africa is. I remember attending um, a conference, I think around about online, around about COVID time. So it was online. And the people there said that right now, Africa accounts for less than, I don't know, is it 5% of global design? That shouldn't be so. We need
Mm.
new fabrics. Africa boasts so many local nice fabrics. Those fabrics could be, I don't know, fabricated, combined with our more common exercise fabrics to create something new. You know, we need to really start pushing the envelope, thinking differently, thinking about what works for us. I'll plug somebody. Actually, I met a lady recently on LinkedIn. She's from South Sudan. I can't remember her name, but this lady, it's not fashion, but it is still in the sports area, in sportscape landscape. And she's come up with something local to her country that helps with hydrating people. So I think she calls it moyo. You know, I'm just trying to say that some of the answers are around us. We don't need to look far for some of these answers. Research and development, again, I know we're suffering in Africa. We don't have enough funding into R&D, right? Ideally, the university should be the first port of call for any young entrepreneur wanting to explore or push the boundaries in sports and fashion, right? But it doesn't matter. We just need to start with what we have, with where we are. So, again, to just summarize, what avails to you as an entrepreneur in this space is industrial design. You come up with something unique. You know that you can protect that design. Patents as well come into play. Trademarks, obviously, when it comes to visual recognition of a brand, because even if you have an industrial design, if you have a patent, you still need to protect the name of that design, like what Sarah highlighted in her masterclass about the Nike Fly shoes, the Vaporfly, right? So
Yeah.
these are human beings producing these things. We as Africans, we can also produce these things. So
Yeah.
again, I'm so happy that we're having this very important conversation about fashion and sports. These are two most popular sectors in the world. Look at the value of fashion, put it here. Look at the value of sports, put it here. Bring them together, and what do you get? So we should be considering how deep Africans are in participatory sports. We should be doing more not just participate, but to actually be involved in the design, in the monetization. So just some of my thoughts anyway.
Thank you so much, Beverly, for that detailed insight as well. I definitely could relate to some parts, especially when it comes to, localizing our the products that we could come up with that are in fashion and sports. I mean, I could relate to overseas, overseas, again, taking back to basketball because that's what I'm more familiar with.
Yeah,
The
cool.
Michael Jordan became the most popular type of sports, the that became fashion wear, and it became
Yeah,
a fashion icon and historical icon as well in the hip hop community. And I've always wished
absolutely.
for something like that to kind of translate in the African scene. We just recently had NBA Africa Season 6, The Ball. And looking at those players, I was thinking to myself, imagine if these players partnered with some sort of African sneaker um,
Right.
designer, and we have, because what they wear on the field in the courts is can be redesigned to be fashion wear as well. Imagine if we had that kind of narrative. And
Yeah.
I do understand, like, Africa is kind of facing challenges of having local production is kind of very costly, but hey, like you said, we can just begin small and we can
Yeah.
take it from there.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Moving to Sandrine. I'm so sorry. I'm hoping I'm not butchering your name. Please tell us a bit about yourself, and we can take it away from there. Is Sandrine with us?
I don't think she's on the call.
Oh,
Yes.
oh, okay. Perhaps she probably struggled a bit to get on our
Yeah.
technical issues. I don't know. I didn't receive any updates from the team members. However, Bernice, please tell us a bit about your role, and then we can jump into our own conversation section of things.
Okay, so thank you so much, Regina. Thank you so much, Beverly, for that introduction to this session. I think it's lovely listening to her because it's almost in the field where I've also played. My name is Bernice. I'm the founder of the Fashion Law Institute. I am at the intersection of law and fashion, and basically the institute is into advocacy and sensitization of fashion industry stakeholders. And in doing that, I found myself doing also policy work around the fashion industry. I mean, in doing policy work, right, you have to show that people understand the kind of laws that you are proposing. So I find myself also teaching. We have a lot of initiative at the Fashion Law Institute, and one of them is the Fashion Law Integration Program, where we work with fashion schools, accelerator programs to introduce fashion law into their curriculum. So we've been doing that. We recently had a we're recently in a collaboration with Yabatech College of Technology, introducing fashion law into their curriculum. So we're doing all of those things, and obviously me representing Fashion Law Institute, I teach at the college. So those are the things that I've been up to. Yeah.
Awesome stuff. From your experience advising startups, creatives, and brands in Nigeria, how are fashion creatives currently engaging with intellectual property? I mean, you just mentioned you integrating fashion law into the schools. Are they leveraging it at a strategic growth tool as a strategic growth tool, or is engagement still largely reactive?
Very, very much reactive. Um, oh wow. So one of the things I also do is the lead counsel at Cardinal Council, where we represent fashion brands. And I realized that people only talk about IP in fashion when there's an infringement, when something is lost, when they see that somebody has copied. If you go on TikTok and you follow our page very actively, we have our biggest reaction or biggest reach when we talk about a current infringement. So I feel like it's still largely reactive. People only talk about, or people remember, intellectual property when their right has been infringed on. And one of the thing about that is people are still struggling with the idea that fashion deserves IP protection. And it is maybe because they believe that fashion is functional and something that everybody should have, right? But we see that there's always a struggle when people say things like, I don't really think that that is so original. So there's the originality problem where people think that fashion has to be something brand new, something very novel that they have not seen before. So it becomes very difficult to have a conversation when you say that a designer can have, IP to a particular work. So we're struggling. I see that they struggle with that idea, right? But again, because of the work we've done and a lot of advocacy that other platform has been pushing, we now see that people now understand that, oh, I can actually get protection for certain rights. I can get protection for certain elements of it. So a lot of people are registering, but still, I still think that there is still a conversation about whether or not it's just registration, or will I be able to enforce this right after registration? So there's a thing of, I want to really see what I can get, what IP can do for me, how we can enforce this right after registration. A lot of designers don't think that it is a worthy investment. They're still at that point where they believe that, oh well, if I register, how do I guarantee that I can sue this person and get my money back? And looking at the justice system, how difficult it is to also get judgment, it's very, very discouraging. I think over the weekend I was watching Emma Tafo's interview on podcast, and he said the same thing. I feel like I'm in La La Land because I cannot exactly boldly say that this work would enjoy copyright, or how do I compete? How do I tell people that this is really what I own, and you cannot replicate it because even their production power can compete with where the counterfeit is coming from. So it's a lot of a lot of conversation that needs to be had and a lot of policy. I was currently also reading, I mean, also trying to get government on board, because also in the creative economy, I feel like fashion takes the back seats in this in a lot of conversation. They talk about fashion, they talk about the very fact that people want to learn a skill. But when it comes to IP, you see that they sort of double down. I was reading the mapping reports by the Ministry of Creative Economy in Nigeria, and you would see that when they talk about IP and the music industry, is sort of like solid, and they believe that there's protection for it. But when you look at that report very closely, you will see that there's also a gap in talking about fashion and IP. So there's still a struggle with the very fact that fashion designs, certain things can enjoy intellectual property, and that has also translated with people's attitude towards registration, and then them wanting to see that there is an immediate benefit of it. So these are the things that we really struggle with at this point.
I find it interesting that on your side, you find creatives to, at large still being reactive. On my side, as far as I've had some conversations, it seems like, you know, it's dormant. There's hardly conversations or even a focus on that. I mean, for example, even where I work, I once had a conversation with my mentor, and I asked him, does he even get applications regarding designs? And he said no. But I guarantee you, most often we do have engagement regarding copyright or trademarks, but designs hardly. And I find that what can I say? It goes to show that most of the designers would then be vulnerable, but also even missing out, like for saying maximizing the value of their IP. What are the most
Yeah.
common vulnerabilities you observe, whether in design, protection, trademarks, or brand collaborations, and where are creatives most exposed?
Okay, so for the activities that we have, you would find that a lot of brands do not exactly have the right trademark. So because it's fashion, right, they tend to go with a lot of generic and descriptive names. So for example, a brand would just, say, oh, I make clothes. So it's going to be Ben's Couture or Ben's Fashion. They don't think very deeply about the name that they want to trade in. And you see that a lot of times they go with names that are very descriptive and generic in the fashion industry, particularly. They don't really think about it as much. It's only when they are now thinking about it as a brand, then they come up with trademark. So there's always that problem of the very fact that they don't have trademark protection, and they also do not, even when they have a mark, it is not something that can be protected because it is as generic as the next thing. Everybody's coming up with similar names, right? You would see that somebody can come up with Olamide's collection or Olamide's, fashions. It looks it becomes very difficult, to protect. So trademark is a vulnerability that exists in the fashion industry, and then also understanding that there are bodies that regulate certain terms. So you see that in Africa, there's a lot of couture brand, but we see that internationally, there's a body that talks about for you to be a couture brand, how I mean, what are the points that you have to meet. They don't know that these things exist, so they just name the brand whatever it is. So that idea that this is actually going to position, this is going to be what I'm going to be investing in, and this is going to position my brand internationally, because the fashion industry is very international. You're trading in Nigeria and then you're selling to people across the world, right? So they're not really thinking about it on a global scale. They're not thinking about it as a brand. You're just seeing it as a hobby or something I'm doing as a side hustle. So it becomes very difficult because they have very descriptive trademark and names. So there's also the very fact that they don't engage in design protection. They don't understand how it works. There are many times when I've seen design protection, and the way that it's even protected, you know that this registration is wrong, right? So they don't understand what can be protected as design. They don't get the concept of it is, the overall visual appearance of a particular products, right? So sometimes it's either they do the registration themselves and they get it wrong, or they engage professionals who do not exactly understand what they exactly want to protect. Sometimes they want to protect the structure, the way it looks, the appearance, but what you see is that they focus solely on the textile prints alone, right? So it can be complicated. So I think that there's a lack of knowledge. There's really
Yes.
to know knowledge available for them to understand industrial design protection. There's also the very fact that they always look to, if I decide that, oh, I'm going to register, how is enforcement going to look like? How do I enforce this right? And I think that's a conversation that they want to have almost immediately. Do you mean that I'm going to take this person to court? Do you think I have the capacity to take this person to court? Do you think if I go to court, I have a solid right? So those are the parts where I know. And yeah, then you look at the administrative process of registration, and I think that there needs to be a lot of conversation to be had because it takes a long time to register. When you're consulting with the client and you tell them that, oh, the typical time is this range, they are like, it can be like, why does it take so long? So those are things that I know that they get exposed to. And then there's also the part of the contracts too, right? That sometimes you can get IP protection by the contracts that you have. So I'm going to be employing tailors. So a lot of brands started as, having the creative director as the founder, but as they grow, they tend to employ staffs. They tend to have maybe a manufacturing team. Many times you see that they don't have conversations about who owns IP, who owns what. So many times you see that there's conversations about, is this going to be a collaborative work? Is this going to be co-authorship? Is this who does it really belong to, because they've not had proper IP assignment. So those are gaps that I see in the fashion industry that exist with brands.
I was thinking also, again, as you're talking regarding the enforcement part, the litigation parts. On our side, the High Court recently passed a directive that before cases get to them, they need to go through the process of ADR. And I think that's something that also now needs to be part of educating the market from intellectual property, and if there's conflict, how that is handled before we go to court, because we now highly discourage litigation because it's expensive, for upcoming designers, brands, and also, I mean, I can imagine even some of the sports teams or that are thrown into this when it could possibly come to their kids as well, the infringement of it all. And litigation is costly. Money is a resource that needs to be taken care of. And then when it comes to, the administration of designs, on our side, the laymen can register their own designs. I don't know how it's done your side in Nigeria or other African countries, but in SA, the laymen can register their designs, which I find it a bit complicated, the burden, especially the technicalities of it all. There's legal terms, and especially when you're mentioning right now that the way sometimes you come across these designs, you see that they're protected but incorrectly, and I think it's a challenge that I don't know how would go about mitigating that. Again, it's advisable for people to approach illegal practitioners, but also to take advantage of some of the free resources like the clinics, law clinics as well, to participate, because they tend to have some sort of pro bono services. And again, now talking about the emerging designers aiming to build commercially viable brands, what are the first intellectual property steps they should prioritize? The hierarchy of things, because again, they're small, they're emerging, they have limited resources. What should they prioritize to both protect and scale their work?
Yeah, I think that Beverly already answered this question, right? I mean, trademark, very, very important. A lot of times I find that you can see a popular brand without a registered trademark. They have that issue consistently where someone can have almost 200K followers on Instagram and would not have a trademark registration, maybe because they find out that at the time of registration, maybe somebody else has registered it or somebody with a similar brand. And I remember, when I was speaking earlier, I talked about the fact that they come up with a lot of similar names, right? So it becomes very difficult to sort of like protect. So once you're starting a fashion business, my belief is that you have to think about where you're going to be investing in, because right now in the fashion industry, it's about building brands that have equity, that can sell anything, not just design themselves, that are so popular that people want to be affiliated with that brand. So you have to start thinking about registration of your trademark. And then also, you see that a lot of brands are incorporating their unique patterns and prints that should also be protected with design. I know that there's what they call the 3D trademark, but again, we expect that when our trademark is reviewed, we have all of those things considered. So patterns that are affiliated with a particular brand, because a lot of brands have those patterns to create handbags, to create shoes, to create other products, right? So that can also be protected under industrial design, and depending on the pattern, can also be covered under copyright. So a trademark, your design, your copyright, very, very important registration. Although, I mean, copyright is also automatic, so that's also there, but you have to recognize that that exists and have proper documentation to prove that you're first in time, so to speak. Then there's also the very fact that you have to start documentation, like I mentioned before, contract, because many times in the fashion industry, the owner of the brand is not the one generating the IP. They employ creative directors to work on it. They might be funding that venture, but the people who are coming up with the creative work are your employees, or they are freelancers that come up with your tech pack, that come up with your design. So you have to be thinking proactively about IP assignment. Many times it's about, if an employee is leaving and they're having conversations about the fact that I created all of these designs during my employment. So you have to pay me off, right? And you see sometimes, very funny, you see that designers or creative directors and fashion brands will be asking for royalties. So sometimes it becomes a very big conflict between the owner of the brand and the creative director. So that balance has to be considered. And I think that it's something that can be avoided when you have proper documentation in place. So having contracts with your staff, with people who come up with the creative ideas behind your brand, because that is also that is your unique selling point to the market, is very, very, very important, to have. So
Thank
yeah,
you so much
that's
for that.
yeah.
The last question I have is, how do stronger intellectual property systems, both in legal frameworks, the policies, compliance, etc., and then the enforcement of them, translate into a tangible economic growth for Africa's fashion industry?
Oh, okay. So I don't know if anyone saw the conversations about Nigerians, and the conversations about Nigerians not buying celebrity products. And they talk about a lot of IP issues because they feel like, oh, the quality, so why I'm bringing up that conversation is that there's a lot of market for people to buy from popular brands, from people who can guarantee certain things. So when their IP is protected, when they have adequate trademark, when they are sure that once it is protected and then I have a right to enforce those mark, it means that there is business and market to sort of like cater towards, right? And it's easier for investors to come in. And fashion is one of those industries that can employ majority of the youths that we have in Nigeria. If you look at even in Africa, they will say that the employment rate when we have a standard, textile and garment industry is high. So we can only get to that level when there is protection, when people are sure that once I put my investment into this particular intellectual property, right, I'm going to get it back. And when there is counterfeiting, when there is piracy, I can go to court and there's going to be an enforcement of this particular right. Once people are sure that that is going to happen, they can enjoy, they can get creative, they can enjoy putting their energy into creating products that can cater to the market, because we have the market to consume this product, really. So when you look at it, when you look at the international market too, you see that celebrities have products, you see that individuals have product, you can see that all of the top fashion brands have products across product lines, right? Across different industry. They can do that because they have protection, and they are sure that, I mean, once we go to court easily, once we have a registered right, just really depending if there are no technicalities, you most likely will have your rights enforced by the court. So once that is guaranteed, I think that people will be motivated, because one of the benefits of intellectual property is that the person who is creating can enjoy protection, and they can recoup their investment in this particular area. So once that is guaranteed, people will be excited about IP, because they are not just looking at IP as legal protection alone, right? It now looks like a business asset that they can milk in various ways, not just in the line of business that they even started. So if we start having that conversation about how they can, see IP more as a business asset, it would really help change the conversation and the perception of people. And I think the fashion industry really needs that, because people do not exactly have that strong. If I see a particular product, I can easily tell somebody else to just replicate it, and people would ask you if that's even infringing, right? I don't think that that's infringement. So those are the things that I feel like they have as problems, and if we are able to make them understand the benefit of IP, and also help with the channel of enforcement, it would help many people really believe strongly, especially fashion, in the IP system.
Definitely. As you were talking, I was thinking that it definitely would encourage, the commercialization of intellectual property, and, be encouraged to exploit intellectual property portfolios at large in different ways. I mean, there's licensing as well. There's various ways where we can, expand not just enforcement when, your rights are encroached, but also ways to make money,
Yeah.
building on the value, etc. I mean, Beverly mentioned trademarking your face, your name, can even license that to a third party or so. And yeah, I could definitely see how that could come in place, like, for example, into sports, a sportsman licensing their name and likeliness to, I don't know, for example, a sneaker line and so forth. I think that definitely having that kind of trust, and also building trust with the market as well, in terms of quality control. I think that's where I see that have that effect, and comes into to play. We're going to be moving on to our Q&A segment. Please do type into your comment section or Q&A, and please detail who you are addressing your question to. If you have questions for either Beverly or Bernice, unfortunately, Sandra cannot join us today. If you have questions, I'll quickly read them. I'm just going to wait a bit for the questions to come in. We've got 10 minutes for questions to come in, and I'll read them out loud to either of our panel guests. Just going to wait a bit for the questions to come in. But while I'm waiting for the questions to come in, to both of our panelists, when we talk about fashion and sport intersecting, we really are talking about the collision of two multi-billion-dollar industries. I mean, yeah, we see Africa is quite large, 54 countries. We have the greatest prospects. From your respective vantage point, whether that is sports, business, brand strategy, or fashion law, what does that intersection actually look like on the ground in Africa today? I could either Beverly or Bernice could take the question. I'd
Sarah
like to
should
get
join us. Sarah, join this conversation.
I would like to get both
I'm
perspectives.
just like, I'm trying to think. Sorry, my brain is a bit, the intersection, right? Like,
Yeah, how
I
it looks
feel
like,
like
how does it translate
I,
on the ground?
I think it's still very limited. I think right now in Nigeria, for instance, it's all about, okay, football dominates a lot heavily, although we're seeing like some nice cool things like padel sneaking in, but again, that productization aspect is still limited to very, very few. So like with the way padel just blew up on the global stage, we're seeing some movement with padel, and people who have the funding, the capital to set up centers and, try and get that Padel brand name out there. But I feel like there's a capital issue. Capital remains an issue. Let's be honest. Sports, whichever way you look at it, whether it's fashion, whether it's the game, whether it's the disputes, it's expensive. So
Yeah.
those, in my opinion, I could be wrong. I don't know what my co-panelists think, but I just don't feel like we're really doing enough to push local brands out there. It tends to be a remix of something like, okay, we're gonna have viewing centers here and promote foreign brands. We're gonna have a conference and talk about. We're not doing novel things, right? Again, Padel is probably the only exception I can think of, but that's a lot of capital you're going to need to set up like a Padel center and give it its own unique name and things like that. So I feel like sports is still lagging behind a little bit, maybe because of the infrastructure support that it requires compared with entertainment, which can rely on like a skit. Or maybe we just need to reinvent the wheel. Let's think, like, can we have sports entertainment? Can we like think of new things that can, I don't know, I'm just waffling at this point, but I'll let my co-panelists go ahead.
Sarah, what are your opinions? How does all this translate on the ground, in your opinion?
I'd say sports and fashion basically are the big industries, but they lag behind in terms of enforcing and also going after their protections. And I would say it's mainly because as Africans, we've done ourselves a disservice by not appreciating that sports and the arts and the culture is actually a valuable thing. So we're playing catch up. Whereas our European counterparts come to our continent to take our talent and inspiration and all that, and then we're left like a deer in the headlights because we don't understand how to protect our own value systems. And even just going as far as what Beverly said with the indigenous sports, traditional knowledge, traditional expression is not something we hear a lot in the sports sector, yet we have very many interesting sports around the continent. I wish I had thought of adding a bit of that in my presentation, but maybe for another day. But yeah, there's so many interesting things that are happening on the continent that we just need the right education system and to give those who are practitioners day to day the ability to spot what it is that they need to protect, and also to inform them where they need to go to enforce or to register for those protections. So there's that education gap, which is a big thing in Kenya, Uganda, Nigeria. Like, you ask the people who are creating the value, they do not know the first step of protection. So I would say a lot of education is needed. And we also need to change our mindset as Africans to know that, yes, talent is investable. And it's not just you go become a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, or a hopeless case. Or is it an embarrassment?
Baby, what's your opinion on the question posed?
Oh, okay. So I think that there is a fusion, right? A lot of people are coming up with athleisure brands. I see that happen a lot. But the problem that I have is that they are not originally designed here. They all go to China, import, and then slamp their trademark on it. So when there's an infringement, you see that there's no difference within the brand. It's just the name that is sort of different. So you can't exactly say that it would enjoy protection. There's a particular brand that was dragged for that because they were like, "Oh, this design, we find it anywhere. So why should it be?" So it's a market because I know that there are a lot of manufacturers now setting up manufacturing plants for sportswear itself because there's a demand for it. But the cost of production here, even the cost of production in China to import here is actually a lot, right? It will take a lot of, it's very capital intensive to actually start, doing that. So there's a lot of gaps in that. We don't have people who design from the scratch. they import from China. And then manufacturing here is quite expensive because you don't get the materials that you need. And when you decide to bring from China, it's also a lot. I remember there was a client who we had who wanted to do a jersey, brand. And it was a problem because every quote that he got for manufacturing was so ridiculous, right? And in his mind, it's just like, how do you start up just a jersey brand with an MLQ of over 20,000? Like I don't want to sell that yet. But for him to get the quality that he was
Yeah.
looking for, he had to buy that much. So there's a gap in infrastructure, right? And people are personally investing in that place, but it's just that they don't have the capacity at the range that is expected. So it's a lot of things, and then we don't design from scratch. So that becomes a problem because the only mark you might have is trademark. The only protection that you have is trademark. So those are the gaps.
I wanted to come in, if it's okay at this point, with some of the work
Yeah.
that I've been doing. I hope you can hear me. I wanted to come in
Yes, we
at
can.
this point because Bernice, you spoke at length about the manufacturing challenges, financial capital, etc. Now, some work that we are trying to do between Sports Nigeria and Abia State is to actually begin to create what they call like not a sports village. That's it, sports economic zone. So it's actually in the plans to create a special sports economic zone, an SSEZ, which by nature is an instrument, it's a legislative instrument, and you get the benefit of manufacturing with no taxes, all taxes waived within Abia State, and it's in the public domain, so it's not like it's top secret or anything. But what we hope will happen if this project really goes all the way, because at the end of the day, Nigeria is Nigeria, and these projects tend to drag. And I will say, I am a member of the team, but I will say it is the truth, right? But what it would do for Nigeria, even for West Africa, would be phenomenal because it would put Abia State on the map. Abia State, for those who do not know, has been known to be like it's been dragged a bit. It's like, oh, the secondhand, cheaply made things. But guess what?
Yes.
They are still producing shoes. They're producing all sorts of things there. So why not harness our local talent, but talent that can produce shoes, can produce sneakers, can produce the jerseys, etc. It's like a Pakistan model. Pakistan currently is the #1 manufacturer of footballs in the world. These guys are like the world's manufacturer of footballs. So we adopt the Pakistan model. And that way you encourage that FDI. Finally, we're not begging you to just, don't pity us. We have something locally that can actually stimulate jobs. It can create markets. We can have made in Nigeria, proudly made in Nigeria. And one section of the SSEZ will be strictly for export, and then another aspect side of it will be to service at least the local regional market. So those are the kind of instruments we need to truly unlock this value, because if we don't do something at that legislative level, we'll just be cottage industry, cottage. So I just thought it was important to mention this work that's currently going on right now, and we hope that it will go the distance. The governor seems quite receptive. So, things like that would really help our local fashion, sports, market.
We have a question for Beverly, but before I do that, I just wanted to also touch in on and add on to that. When I was looking at from the South African perspective, I was being irked that it is these European brands that kind of fund our sports kit. In South Africa, soccer is very big, followed by rugby. But it's always been your foreign brands that provide the kit, your Adidas, etc. But our local brands, like Bernice was highlighting, how these brands would be manufactured in China. They just slap the logo. The designs are no different. However, we do have someone. I think I always wonder how he did it. I remember attending a fashion summit at some time, and we had a conversation about this. There is the owner of the street fashion brand called Buten, originally inspired by the South African slogan Bantu. Buten, owned by Julian Kubel. and he had partnered with one of South Africa's very famous soccer team, Kaizer Chiefs, and they collaborated and they created apparel that was sold in the Kaizer Chiefs stores as well as Julian Kugel. So I could imagine if, like, that's an example of the translation of fashion and, you know, sports coming together on the ground, but it's something so rare. But yeah, moving to the question from Rejoice to Beverly. Counterfeit jerseys and sportswear are widespread. What are practical steps that brands can take beyond enforcement to address this? And what are the simple ways emerging from American designers emerging? What are the simplest ways emerging African designers protect their IP when partnering with major sports brands or leagues? So those are like two questions in one. First one is counterfeit
Well, I
jerseys.
saw some
Yeah,
questions.
right?
Okay, I think my network is unstable. Is it me?
No, it's okay.
Is my network unstable? Okay. So I saw a really cool Vaseline ad the other day about the African prince. I don't know if anyone saw that ad. Really, really funny ad where they kind of take that narrative of the scammer Nigerian prince and they flip
Wow.
it. You saw it, Sarah. I loved it. So I'm thinking, right? Why can't we put like holograms? So what I saw that they did is they put like some kind of hologram design. There must be cheap, friendly ways we can reinforce authenticity. So what we're talking about is authenticity. How do we help our audience know that what they're buying is not okrika or fake? So I would say, hologram, like you could put it in the inner of the jersey or something, just to say this is an authentic product, or one of those things that if you bend it up, it kind of like reflects in a certain way. This is just off the top of my head, because now you're speaking as the design. I'm not a designer. Sarah is a designer and a model, so she might have a better idea. But I'm thinking that hologram is really, really cool, and I'm seeing it on a lot more products, especially sports jerseys, where you have like the inner. So I think that could be a good way to fight back, as it were, against piracy. Just my idea. Little hologram logo, but don't know what
Add on
everybody
that.
else thinks.
Can I just add on that? There's a very interesting practice that some luxury houses are now taking on, which is having a category of product which is more affordable but still
Oh, yeah.
elite. So yes, you have your
Diffusion line. The
tier one.
diffusion line.
Yes, you have your tier
Diffusion.
one line and then you have
Yeah.
your diffusion lines. And I'm thinking that could actually work for Africa. If you're producing jerseys for fans and Africa has huge fan bases for these teams, why not have a diffusion line for Africa and license the manufacturers to actually make them on the continent rather than chasing after counterfeits, which is just a whole,
Yeah.
that court process. Yes, we've already had. It's
Yeah.
impossible.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for a very insightful conversation. Benice, please close us off. Oh, there we go.
Okay. Thank you so much, Beverly. Thank you so much, Sarah, for coming. We really appreciate you being here. I really think that when we talked about sports and fashion, I was just really thinking about how it was going to be, but I really listened to everything that has been said here. I think it's such a valuable resource, to be honest. I even plan on watching this again because I learned a lot from our talking and then the presentation from Sarah. Thank you so much for honoring our invitation. Thank you. Thank you so much, Regina.
Thank you. Thank you for having
Thank
me.
you to
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Yeah. Yeah.
Bye. Have a nice day.
Bye.
We'll hand over to Goslov. Okay. All right. Oh, okay. Yes, we have to.
I think I'll just take the closing remarks. I don't think that's
Oh, so to be honest, I didn't know that was the final
yes.
talk. But again, I guess we have everybody, go, and that's okay.
Yes. So first, I want to say thank you to everyone for attending this event. We've had a very beautiful and insightful conversation from the MC to the keynote speaker, Sarah. Thank you so much. And then the panelists, Regina did such a lovely job. Thank you. And then the members of the panel, the speakers, Bernice, Beverly, and Sarah as well, because she joined in. Thank you so much for giving us such an insightful conversation. I mean, we've been able to see how the fashion industry and the sports industry intersect for this IPA, right? And it's been so insightful, and I have definitely learned a lot. Thank you so much to everyone, and to everyone that attended and showed up and stayed till the very end. We are very pleased and grateful that you did that. We'll be having a leader clinic next week. Please watch and check up on our social media handles to know the details. You would see, if you check the chat box, you would see the links to our social media handles in the chat box. Please follow us and check our social media handles basically to find out details about the events. Thank you so much. I think we can end this event now. I'm so glad, and I hope you guys learned a lot as well and as much as I did. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't introduce myself. My name is Grace Ifyong. I'm the Secretary of the Fashion Law Institute Africa. Thank you.